The clock ticked slowly as the cold steel door of the prison cell creaked open. John Matthews, a man sentenced to die, sat motionless on his bed. His hands were shackled, his face pale, and his heart weighed down with the inevitable. But it wasn't fear that held him in place. It was the single thought that consumed him in his final hours, the memory of his loyal dog, Max. Max wasn't just any dog. He was John's best friend, his partner through thick and thin. In the years that led to this moment, Max had been there for him in ways no human ever could. They shared every laugh, every tear, and every struggle. Now, as the final moments of John's life loomed, there was one last thing he wished for. John's request wasn't for a last meal or a grand final speech. It was simple. He just wanted to see Max one more time. "Please, I need to see him," John pleaded with the prison guards, his voice cracked with desperation. The guards, hardened by years of prison life, exchanged skeptical glances. It was an unusual request, especially for someone facing execution. But after some discussion, they agreed. Max would be brought to him. As the prison van made its way toward the holding facility, Max lay quietly in the back, his paws pressed against the cold floor. His fur, usually a gleaming mix of black and brown, now appeared dull, as though he too could sense the weight of the moment. Max's handler, Sarah, had been with him through countless rescues and heart-wrenching goodbyes, but this was different. There was something in the air, a heaviness neither could shake. Max, for the first time in his life, seemed to understand that his time with John might be fleeting. The guards opened the van door, and Max stepped out, his movements slow, uncertain, as if he too could feel the tension around him. Sarah held his leash tight, her eyes filled with emotion as she walked him toward the prison gates. She had seen dogs saved from tragedy, but never had she been part of a scene so raw, so full of finality. John sat in his prison cell, eyes fixed on the small window. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as he waited. His heart raced with hope, mixed with the painful knowledge that this might be his last opportunity to say goodbye. He could feel the walls closing in, but he kept his focus on the one thing that had kept him going for years: Max. As the door to his cell opened, Max was led in, his ears perked up at the sight of his owner. John's heart skipped a beat. The world around them seemed to vanish as Max trotted forward, his tail wagging in slow, hesitant motions. Max approached John, who had difficulty holding back tears. He slowly reached out his hand, and Max, as though understanding the depth of the moment, nuzzled his head against John's palm. It was as though Max was telling him that everything would be okay. For a few moments, there was silence. Just the soft sound of breathing, the occasional sniffle from John, and the low hum of the prison's ventilation system. They were two souls reunited after a long and painful separation. The bond between them, stronger than words, was clear in that instant. But as the seconds passed, something unexpected happened. Max suddenly stiffened, his head turning sharply toward the door. Sarah, too, noticed the change in his demeanor. Her heart raced as she realized something was terribly wrong. Max, typically calm and loving, was agitated, his eyes darting around the room, his fur standing on end. John felt the tension rise, not just in Max, but in himself as well. "What's happening, Max?" he whispered. The dog barked softly, a sound that had never been heard in such a quiet, tense moment. John's heart pounded. Was Max sensing something he couldn't see? Something dangerous? Before anyone could react, the door burst open. Two more guards rushed into the cell, their hands on their weapons. Max barked fiercely, his body blocking John from the approaching guards. His protective instincts kicked in. The dog stood firm, his growls low and threatening, as if daring anyone to harm his beloved owner. Sarah stepped forward, speaking urgently to the guards. "Wait! This is not what it seems." But the tension in the room was palpable. The guards hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to approach the dog or to wait for orders. Suddenly, one of the guards, the one closest to John, looked at the other with shock on his face. "Wait, I know that man," he muttered, his hand lowering from his weapon. The room fell silent. The second guard frowned. "What are you talking about?" Before the guard could explain, the first one spoke again, his voice low, filled with disbelief. That's That's the man who saved my life. I was just a rookie when we worked together, back before he got into all this trouble. John's heart sank as he watched the guard's eyes well up. You're the one who kept me safe during that hostage situation, the guard continued, stepping forward slowly. You saved me. You saved my team. The second guard looked confused, but the first one didn't care. He turned to the others. We're not taking him today. We can't, not after everything he did for us. Max's barking subsided, and his body relaxed, sensing the shift in the room. He moved back to John's side, sitting quietly, watching the guards with a sharp gaze. The silence stretched, and for the first time in what felt like forever, John allowed himself to breathe. His final wish had been granted. He had seen Max one last time, but more than that, something even more powerful had happened. The guards, once enemies, now remembered the man who had saved their lives, the man who was more than the sum of his mistakes. A decision was made. John would not die that day. His execution was postponed, and the man who had risked it all for others was given a second chance. As John and Max were led back to a holding area, John looked down at his loyal dog, tears falling freely now. You did it, buddy. You saved me, he whispered. Max gave a soft bark, as if agreeing. The guards, still in disbelief, watched the pair with a mixture of awe and respect. They had witnessed something beyond the ordinary, a bond that defied reason, a love that transcended the walls of the prison, and a second chance at redemption.